you, everybody. Okay, thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Look forward to delivering for you a speech of interest. Today, I'm talking to you about distraction, or the lack of distraction. Most of us live in a highly distracted world where I have basically 45 seconds to get your attention here during this speech. And in order to get your attention, I'm first going to ask you a question, as often we do when we deliver speeches. So how many of you have taken this week 1 hour with no lights, no sound, no body sensations as related to your feet on the ground, almost feeling weightless, in order to process your thoughts and have some time undistracted? Okay, by a show of hands, I see none. What is that way?
Does sleeping count?
I forgot to add while waking. While waking.
Close.
Okay, now I'm recording this and I'm not going to post it. Okay. Okay, so nobody put their hands up. Well, what if I offered you a way to do that, where you had that hour, no lights, no sound, awake, and no body sensations whatsoever, feeling weightless? Would that be something you might be interested in? Mm-hmm. Enter sensory deprivation flotation. Sensory deprivation flotation is a technique that I came across in my search for ways to improve my meditative practice. About 2 years ago, I came upon this, finding out about it through me, because I am often the person who introduces things to me. And I went down to a place south of here called Zero Gravity Institute. The objective of today's speech is to tell you about, is a report out on what I learned from going to Zero Gravity Institute and also a place called True Rest Austin. I'll tell you about both of those places. Sensory deprivation is a way to very quickly get into a meditative state. So today I'm going to go over a brief introduction, which I'm doing right now, a little bit of the history of sensory deprivation, flotation, there's a couple of different ways of saying it, and then also walk you through what it is all about, okay? So first thing to note about the history is this is very old technology. On the far left you can see this astronaut-looking guy named John C. Lilly, who in 1954 pioneered this technique. He was an American physician and neuroscientist. And what he was trying to study was that at the time, the theory was that if you took away all the senses, that consciousness itself would cease. In other words, all those little brain waves that we were having, induced by thoughts, they would literally go away if you turned off all the sensory information. In fact, what was found out was that was completely untrue, and his work proved that. You can see here, this is the early float tank. This was designed in 1954. It looks pretty barbaric, looks like a torture chamber, and I can assure you that the modern day tanks do not look anything like this. On the far right, you can see that the brain waves that we experience were in different tiers, and the first two are what we would consider waking states, be it they're beta and alpha. The one at the bottom is called theta, which has been found to be part of a meditative state. And when John C. Lilly commenced these experiments, he found that when people were in this environment of flotation and no senses, they actually went into this deeply relaxed theta state very readily. Okay. This is an example of a modern day float tank. As I mentioned, I went to first a place called Zero Gravity Institute, which is just south of here. The float tanks there are slightly bigger than this. They are Texas sized. They are like an 8x8 with a rather tall ceiling. So for those of you who maybe do have some claustrophobia, you may want to go to that place. However, as I found upon visiting True Rest Austin, which uses all of these pods, you don't really notice it once you're in there because, as I stated earlier, the lights are off, there's no sound, you're just floating. Okay. All of these sensory deprivation tank facilities share many things in common. Number one, they're all impeccably clean. And the reason for that is obviously nobody wants to float with any debris in the water or any funny smells. Number one. Number two, they all have a very relaxed atmosphere. There's always aromatherapy. There's always, just kind of that spa feel. Number three, they all have that day spa music, right? It's like going to get a massage, And number four, they all have, it's Austin, right? So they all have a lot of tattooed staff that kind of have that days on their look. And then number five, because John C. Lilly did all of this work in the 60s, there's a lot of psychedelia going on there. So you're going to find like a ubiquitous copy of Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now, in almost all of these places. The basic procedure, because I got a green card, I'm going to hurry up. Basic procedure is you show up, you take a quick shower, you put your earplugs in, you then get in the tank. They'll have some music going on, they'll turn the lights off, and then you go in as you would normally in a meditation, right? You would either chant a mantra, count backwards, whatever it is that makes you happy there. So this is the float spa that I mentioned. This is True Rest. As you can see, it's got that spa feel, right? You've got the nice cushy chairs. There's that ubiquitous copy of Ram Dass's Be Here Now that I joked about. And there, of course, is one of the float chambers. Some hardcore floaters, some famous floaters out there. Dr. Richard Feynman, Steph Curry, believe it or not, is a hardcore floater. No surprise Joe Rogan is. And then finally, Maggie Simpson. I was very surprised to see that Maggie was actually a hardcore floater. All right, and finally, what I'll tell you is that for $49, this is a really relaxing way to spend your time. I've had $49 Groupons, but then discovered that Svetlana was a little bit chintzy with the massage oil, and next thing you know, I got a burn. True story. So if you have any interest in this whatsoever, I do have some cards available with a $49 offer. And I put this nice little graphic up here because this is really what it is. It's like having a trip into inner space. You've got no lights, no sound. It's very, very relaxing and a wonderful way to get those deep meditative states without having to sit for hours on end. So anyhow, I do have time for Q&A if anybody does have questions. Thank you. Oh, look at that. We have questions. Yes, ma'am.
So how do you feel after you finish one of these?
It's very rejuvenating. Much like going to an actual massage. Oh, let me first restate the question. The question was, how do you feel after having one of these sensory deprivation flotations? So it's, like I said, it's very relaxing. It's like when you go to a massage place, you come out, you're kind of, sometimes people do fall asleep. I don't normally fall asleep, but some people do. And yeah, you at first you're a little bit groggy, but you're relaxed for the rest of the day. Good question.